Just always been a huge music lover. Ever since I was in high school, I really fell in love with reggae specifically. I would write, do interviews, and then I just kind of got burnt out from the writing. I don't know. I just lost like the passion. I'm not like a true writer, I don't think. um, and so then I just stopped doing everything for a while.
Yes. I learned a lot from you, actually, by the way. Like, yeah, you're like my little reggae mentor. Because when I'm like, oh, she's got a new one. And I'm like, oh, I never even heard of that. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that. What happens when someone decides to build a whole interview platform from scratch with nothing but curiosity and a camera?
Today, we're hanging out with Sandy Kreitzberg, the creator behind Say What with Sandy, one of the most community-driven interview projects in the Utah scene.
If you love independent music and real stories from artists, roadies, and fans, this one's for you.
We're your hosts, Zach and Matt, and this is the ZHZ Podcast, where artist interviews feel like conversations, not press runs.
Stick around because Sandy's origin story is wild, honest, and way more relatable than you think. Sandy, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
You are based out of, we'll say, like West Coast?
Yeah,
LA,
I live in Thousand
maybe?
Oaks, Southern California, like an hour outside of LA.
My stepdad used to live out in Oxnard and Ventura, so I used to spend summers out there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I got there sometimes.
I spent 2 years in the Inland Empire, baby. River Tucky for the win.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
And I have family that live in Fresno, and that's just it's not a place I care to
doesn't
visit.
really count.
What was that?
Not as nice as Ventura. I won't talk.
No, not at all. No, it's a lot hotter too. It's pretty warm out there. So let's get into your background a little bit. So what first inspired you to start Say What with Sandy?
So I've just always been a huge music lover. Ever since I was in high school, I really fell in love with reggae specifically. And then after high school, I started doing music journalism they were formerly called Top Shelf Reggae, and now they're called just Top Shelf Music. They cover all genres.
Was it like a blog or?
Website, music news website. They'll do articles on shows and, events and different things. And so I actually did that with my mom. She's a photographer and I was a journalist.
Really?
And so we were kind of like a mother-daughter team.
Heck yeah.
I would write, do interviews, and she would take photos. And then I just kind of got burnt out from the writing. I wasn't like, I don't know. I just lost like the
You're
passion.
not a writer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not like a true writer, I don't think. And so then I just stopped doing everything for a while. I was just feeling like wanting to like do something creative, and I've always like dreamed of doing. Before, when I was doing for Top Shelf Music, I was way too nervous to get on camera and do interviews like behind a camera. I'd always just like record on my phone and then like type it in later,
Yeah.
into an article. But I was just feeling like, you know what? I'm older now. I got more confidence. Like, it excited me. And I just feel like so many people are doing social media nowadays, and I just wanted to like get in on
Right.
it too.
Well, like even with podcasts, I mean, clearly the audio only podcast is still a huge market, but it's so much anymore. You kind of have to go multimedia. You've got to have the audio, you've got to have the video to go. I mean, even a lot of radio stations now are doing a live YouTube feed of their radio shows because it just reaches more people and it gets more exposure. Was there like a single artist or a single show that made you think, I need to capture this, I need to start this show, I need to start talking to these people on camera?
Ooh, good question. There's definitely been some shows like back in the day when I was writing where I felt like I need to write an article about this. One of them was I saw Mike Love. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mike Love. He's a reggae musician, just so profound. His lyrics, his show. He's just like literally one of the most talented humans probably I would say on this earth. It might be a hot take, but
No.
so just like
cool.
seeing him live one time, I just got home and I was like, I need to write an article about this. And then more recently, one of the first bands I interviewed was, they're called Strawberry Fuzz, and they're like a punk surf rock band out of Venice Beach, and their live show is just so fun. So they were definitely on my first list of people that I had to interview. And to this day, they're one of my favorite interviews that I've done because they're just they're just so goofy and crazy.
Yeah.
And it was a fun one.
Do they just make?
Dig
They
it.
just have a way to make you feel comfortable, like
Yeah.
with one of the group, you know?
Yeah, definitely. There was just like
Yeah.
a lot of fun banter in that interview for sure.
Right.
I like when they don't take my questions so seriously, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever interviewed a band where it was just like, especially reggae, like really monotone? I'm
Oh,
serious all the time.
Yeah, I won't say names, but there was definitely so.
You won't spill the tea. Okay. No, it's all
There was
good.
definitely some interviews where I was getting maybe like some one-word answers,
Oh, I hate
and
that.
I felt like I was like really reaching for a little bit more from them.
And how
Right.
did that make you feel?
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like I would ask a question that was meant to be silly and then they would take it like really seriously. And then I was like, oh, maybe that wasn't such a funny question. I don't know.
That was supposed to be a joke, but I
Yeah.
guess not. I guess
Yeah.
not. So, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite recent interview or clip that you put out recently?
Ooh. Um, I would say aside from the interviews, I've also been doing, I've been sharing like music that I listen to or um,
Yes.
just
I
what's
learned a
new.
lot from you, actually, by the way. Like, yeah, you're like my little reggae mentor, because when I'm like, oh, she's got a new one, and I'm like, oh, I never even heard of that. I've never heard of that.
So-
I've never heard of that. So,
So I did over the summer. I did like I'm sure you probably know Sublime. They have a lot of cover songs, a lot of samples, and so
Yep.
I did like a 3-part video on showing their version and then showing the original song or sample or whatever.
Yes.
It was. And
you
that
know what's
cool.
What was great is I picked out maybe 3 of those, but I had no idea there were so many more until I was like, holy crap, they sampled everything, you know? But yeah, it was.
I mean, I knew some of them, but I was really doing my research to find all those.
Yeah, I was gonna say you must have, because I was just like, wow, I learned something every time I watch you. That's what makes Say What Was Sandy so great.
Yeah. It's controversial, in the comments, people are like, Sublime's a glorified cover band. And my opinion is I still feel like they covered a lot of music, but you had to have so much talent to make it what they made it, So.
Sure. Well, and I was just talking to Matt before we came on, and I was sitting there thinking about like my personal love for the rock reggae scene, especially the West Coast side, and how little I really knew. Like I'm one of my favorite bands recently is Bumpin' Uglies, but they're from Maryland, but still in that pocket, right? And then I've heard like Fortunate Youth and then Dirty Heads and Slightly Stupid and all of these great bands. I was like, holy cow. Like for me, when this had been like 92, I don't even think I was out of high school yet. It was when I first heard of Sublime. And to me, that was mind blowing, because there were so many genres being just kind of compacted into this like chaos of music. And 40 Ounces to Freedom was just like, every song was so wildly different. It's still to the day one of my favorite albums. And then of course 311 was kind of hitting the scene there too. And I thought I had a corner on it. And then I had no idea, to be honest with you. Like I was clueless, really. I still am, and I'm learning. And so that's why I watched Say What Was Sandy.
Yeah, those are the bands I was listening to too. And then when I was in high school, I heard Dirty Heads on the radio, and I was like, oh my God, I looked them up on YouTube, watched every single interview video I could find, and then just started going down the rabbit hole of all of that. And then I started dating Nick, and he introduced me to like so much more roots reggae too.
Yeah, oh yeah, very roots reggae. They don't call him the General for no reason, man. That guy's a badass. So,
well, you know what? While we're kind of in the neighborhood of Sublime, your interview with Jacob Noel was just, I was so enjoying that, because I mean that honestly, what a cool vibe. You're just hanging outside the van. They're like, yeah, broke my leg and all. but what struck me is, the evolution of Jacob coming in and stepping into kind of to fill the shoes of his father, and how his sound has evolved to where you listen to it and it's like you hear so much Bradley in him, but it extends. Like I had it on kind of on the side as I was working today and listening, and just even listening to him talk, it's like sometimes it sends a shiver down your spine, because it's like, oh wow, there is so much of your old
Yeah.
man in you, but you manage to be you. You know, you're not trying to be a Bradley clone. You're being uniquely yourself, but you're harnessing all of these great parts of what made your dad this icon of, of the genre. Zach and I, we had a crappy little apartment in Kaysville, Utah in the middle of this summer. And I remember we got home from a serving shift at Applebee's, and we flipped on the TV, turned on MTV to find out that Bradley had died.
That's
And
heartbroken. It's crushing.
God, we sat there on the couch, and I don't think we moved for a good couple of hours, just sitting there in disbelief. And then, of course, the whole rest of the night, we just played Sublime on repeat, album after album, and just moped and moped.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a big loss. I'm the same age as his son.
So cool.
So that was cool to interview him being like the same generation.
Right. Well, and you guys touched on that in the interview, how it's something that spans from so many generations, of us old farts that don't really feel like we're old, but we are now, because it's okay.
Well, I'm almost 51. Actually, I turned 51 next week.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks. I'm still alive. Who'd have thunk it? Yeah, but my favorite part of that interview with Jacob's band was he said something about sexy. I heard the word sexy, and then I'm hearing things like, what's the most sexy thing or whatever, and then Jacob goes off.
Yeah,
and it was so funny because you're like, he's talking about taking a shit or something, and you're like, so sexy.
Yeah. I like to just kind of ask them when do they feel they're sexiest. And
that's right. It was a great question because he goes off and like I don't know what he was like in his own head. He's going and you're just like, wow.
He said that's not on brand for them.
Yeah. Oh, did he? After he's like, no, that's all
you're talking
good,
to the wrong band about that. But I just
exactly
in there just to kind of throw people off sometimes a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's great.
So excited about that. It almost didn't happen. Like I had to go through so many people to get a hold of him and try to like put it together. And it finally happened, but it was through the girl that does my hairstylist is friends with one of the guys in his band's wife. And she reached out to me. I didn't even ask her. And she was like, hey, the show's coming up. Do you want me to help you get an interview? She didn't even know I had been trying to. Like, I'd reached out to management. I reached out to all these other people. No response. And then she hit me up and they made it.
And it was the hairdresser.
Well, right on. See? I guess it is who you know, right? But you didn't know you knew who you needed to know.
Yeah.
Until you were getting your hair done.
You never know who you know until you know. And then once you know, you know.
Yeah.
So
right?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
So what's up? What's your plans for Say What with Sandy coming up in the next year?
Oh man, I have had really no plan ever with this. I just been like seeing, like I have my dream of like, people I'd love to interview. But I've just been, I feel like you can't like really prepare that much. Like I interviewed Yellow Wolf.
I love that, by the way.
Thank you. And I had no idea until like a week before, I wasn't like the hugest Yellow Wolf fan really at the time. Like I knew of him.
Right.
That I knew that I saw that I might have this opportunity, and I did a deep dive and learned everything I could about him. And so I just kind of like am rolling with it as I go. But I would love to just keep doing interviews, do like more long form stuff. I did one like more longer form one.
Yeah, you did. Oh, go ahead with Nick, you said?
Yeah, just one longer one with Nick because, I live with him. So we just.
Right. Well, wasn't that was kind of early on though, wasn't it? Like a long interview with him?
Times,
Yeah. But you also, you did a kind of, I wouldn't say it's a long one, but you interviewed, what's the name of the band? They're out here in Utah.
Native Leaves. Oh yeah.
Yes, Native Leaves, right.
You learned some valuable life skills in that one.
Kind of.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, of all of the artists she's interviewed, it's a band in Utah that teaches her how to roll a joint, man.
Yeah.
Utah.
I feel like
you're like, I'm not gonna smoke this, so but here,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I feel like Utah has like a little bit of like the counterculture. Like there's a big reggae scene in Salt Lake.
There is,
which surprised a lot of
Well,
people.
I think that part of that is that, there is, Salt Lake is not the same Salt Lake that I grew up in. Salt Lake City anyway. I mean, the rest of Utah is still, it is still catching up, but I think that Salt Lake City is more and more diverse by the day, and it's and full of people that really appreciate music, appreciate festivals, appreciate that vibe, and it's really cool. But it was cool to see, like, hey, all right, a Salt Lake band, and it's like, I hadn't even heard of them until I saw them on your show, and it's like, I live here, so it's like, that shows you how connected to the scene I am.
But Native Leaves, they're great. They're coming up in the scene right now for sure.
Heck yeah,
that's awesome.
And I just love how it's like when you do have an interview, it's like I'm always excited to see who it is, because it's not the same. But like it's always some new art. Like you had Too Short. On. You had like Dan Kelly from Fortunate Youth. Such a cool dude.
Yes.
And you live with a legend in itself. So it's like you're in the pocket. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of jealous, Sandy. I really am a little bit.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I love reggae, but I try to, I also really love hip hop, punk, rock, especially. That's another one who's on my list of people I want to interview is he was the lead guitar player for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Mike Campbell, for many years. And so
you want to branch, you're looking to branch out as well.
I would love to do comedians too.
Yeah. Okay.
Big comedy fan. So, but reggae is like my day one.
Well, because that's your jam. Yeah. I mean, that's like root. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's your foundation. That's where but to be able to spawn off from that. I mean, it's kind of like our podcast. Our original idea was just to, talk about the Utah scene or just independent artists in itself. And originally I thought, well, we're going to end up talking to ourselves most of the time, because I didn't think anyone would want to be on the show, to be honest with you, but I was completely wrong. It's the opposite. Like we've only done maybe 2 or 3 different episodes where it's just Matt and I, because usually we have somebody to interview, and they want to share their story. And I think a lot of people that are musicians or fans of musicians, sometimes they get a different perspective. Like, oh yeah, this guy's a human being, like they put him on this kind of pedestal of they're beyond my reach, which they're really not. They're normal guys, that just do it for a living. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was my motivation for wanting to do this, was to show their artist personalities and the side of them that maybe they wouldn't see just from stage or social media.
Right.
Well, and you know what? This is cool for us, because this is the first time we've had another person. I mean, because we're kind of, in peers, kind of doing similar things in the scene. I mean, some of us have bigger and more notable guests than we do. But,
Thank you.
But that's,
Thank you.
But
No,
it's so cool. Because it's almost like, because I think that it's just a cool chance, I think, to kind of talk shop, because there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences as well. But I think that it's interesting to see the evolution, how it kind of grows and takes on a life of its own, when you intend to kind of start out doing, I think I'll try this, and then then you see, what direction it decides to go, because so many times it's like you want to go one way, and then you realize you have this opportunity to talk to somebody here, and it's like, well, hell yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's pretty cool.
And then I realized getting interviews constantly to have enough content to keep it going was challenging. So that's why I started kind of sharing other things. Like I did a get ready with me video one time.
You did a Christmas one recently of Christmas music.
Christmas
and I was
reggae.
like, Christmas reggae music. I'm like, that is so cool. And we play this one every time we put up our Christmas tree. And I was like, man, that's so cool. Like we have our own traditions, it's not reggae music, but but it's what I love about it is it's still family. You know what I mean? Like there's a connection there. And I love that it's all rooted in reggae. You guys are definitely ambassadors to the genre.
That was just the beginning of Sandy's story, and you can already see why her platform stands out in the Utah scene.
If you're into independent music and real conversations with creators, you're in the right place.
Go check out Sandy's channel, Say What with Sandy, on YouTube.
And of course, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next part.